That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me this week I've got Dan. How are you, Dan?
Mate, we're into the top six. How can you complain?
Got to pinch ourselves, don't we? It's got to be, and actually I probably should have researched this before the episode. I can't remember too many weeks spent in the top six under a senior, so I'm trying to think, like, when was the last time? Obviously, we made the top six under a senior for a couple of weeks, but it's rare air. Don't seem to find ourselves up this way too often. It always feels like we kind of get close and it's always like we've just got to win the next game and we'll be there, and then we somehow find a way to lose it.
Yeah, look at it in the past, it's been a little bit interesting. We have sort of, as you said, always been, well, not always, but at times found ourselves there or thereabouts. I guess more thereabouts than there, though, when it matters. But I don't know. There's a different feeling about what's going on the pitch at the moment. Like, I just think in seasons gone by, injuries became a convenient excuse at times, where you went, oh well, we're missing Estepinian, or we're missing, whoever, missing this guy, or missing that guy, and so it's like, oh well, we didn't have them, so that's acceptable. It's an acceptable loss. Like, whereas we went suddenly McBurney's out of the squad, and we're going, oh geez, who's going to score the goals? How are we going to, like, he's a big player, he's super important for us, and then Joffrey just steps up and bang, 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 and we've only lost, is it the one since McBurney's been out? Is the Derby game the only one? So, I think that kind of resilience, that kind of, I guess, the sort of the overall depth, where more and more people are chipping in with goals. Like, pretty much everyone, actually, I think every one of our forward players has scored. Like, Ndala scored, Akintola scored, Joffrey scored, Joseph scored, McBurney scored, Destin scored. Like,
Balumi's like literally the only one, and like he's been injured.
Well, that's true. Oh, even Miller's scored. I forgot.
Miller scored, yeah.
So you're right. Balumi is literally the only one of all of those of all of the, like, 8 or 9 players for our forward three who hasn't scored yet. And what, the McBurney and Joffrey have got about 13 goals or something between them now. So, I think that there's just something different, this year. And I don't necessarily think that, some of the personnel we have, they have experience, they're definite improvements on previous years, but some of them aren't necessarily that much better than what we've had in the past. But I think the confidence or the instruction or something that's coming from Jurkovic is resonating with this squad. And I think, I feel like with football, especially at this level and at the championship, you're kind of just looking for that perfect storm. You're just kind of looking for the right group of players and the right manager at the right time. And if it all comes together well, then you have success. And you've only got to look at, like Leicester's, 2015 or whatever, where they just...
I was just going to make that comparison. That was exactly what I was just going to say. Of like, it's that perfect storm. Yeah. It's just, but the other, like, it's the parachute team's not performing particularly well. It's the fact that it's just such a wide open league that it's the perfect year to have that sort of, opportunity to just, if you get the right group of players together at the right time, as you say, and Leicester's the perfect comparison. You go, all the other big teams dropped off. They stepped into the hole. Like, if, Sheffield United, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich aren't performing to that level, it means that there's that opportunity for those next teams to step up, and hopefully we can take that opportunity.
Yeah, I think the other thing that has miraculously somehow worked in our favour, I think, is actually the transfer embargo. I think that being placed on us, I think, made us work a little bit differently and have to use different tools to, like, convince players to come. Like, we couldn't just say, oh well, we'll pay you whatever you want. It became kind of a bit of a, like, you want, if you want to invest in this project,
you get the right characters,
and so it became, I feel like that in a weird way has actually benefited us, as well as like obviously there's been some wheelings and dealings that I'm still yet to see how they play out in the wash. You know, Gelhardt being allowed to come back for free, JB just coming on a free, like just there's some things that are still a bit weird, but you go like, I think with Ajun's sort of history of just willingness to splash the cash in this the summer, kind of go, if we don't have that embargo, I think he probably pushes to get some higher profile, quote unquote, higher profile players, and they maybe don't necessarily fully align with the values, the characteristics that Jakirovic wants within his squad. So I think it's just sort of, as you say, it's one of those other points in this perfect storm that's sort of that's just contributing in an interesting way, I think.
Yeah, and I think you look at some of the players we were linked to, Tom Cannon and Louis Barry, who both went to Sheffield United in the end, and both not doing too much there. And I think now looking at having their loans cut short, and you think potentially we would have spent the money on them, potentially we would have tried to get them in. And as you say, potentially that means that you're not getting the right characters into the squad. I think, like you say, because you're not able to just throw cash around, you really are bringing in players who are keen to be part of that project. And it's going to be really fascinating to see what we do in January, what sort of maneuverability we might have in January. Because I think when you look at the squad, I think the obvious one is Palmer's probably going to move on in January, which does free up some cash from that perspective. If we're going to believe that there's this sort of cap from the EFL's perspective that we can only spend a certain amount on wages, that maybe we get Palmer's off the books, we bring someone else in. You look at the fact Kamara's not doing much over in Spain. Like, I don't know whether we either look to bring him back or, reloan him to a different club. You look at Burstow ripping it up in League One. You think we do have these sorts of options almost within us, like Ömer doing stuff over in Turkey, whether he looks at the squad and goes, oh, okay, this is a very different prospect to what it was 12 months ago. Maybe I am more motivated to play there. Maybe I'm more keen to be part of that push for promotion. He comes back in January and looks at different. Like, there's all these players that you sort of forget are still technically on the books that, maybe that's where it gets a bit creative with the EFL, where maybe we have to sell Palmer in order to recall a player, because maybe that would put us over a cap that they might have for us. But it's almost like we do have almost options within the squad before we even think about external options out there that we could try to attract in January.
Yeah, I was just reading the club's loan report for October, and Burstow scored. He's almost 1 in 2 or something. He's about 7 goals in 17 or something. Tyler Sellers-Fleming is scoring a few goals for Scunthorpe. Obviously, like goalkeepers, but Timothy Tatala is doing well at Doncaster, as well as a few other I think Omer's got a couple of assists in his last few games. Pretty much of all of the sort of players who have been in and around our first team squad in the past, Kamara is the only one who's not having really a good loan. But so it does. You're right. It does raise an interesting question, and it feels like that is actually like a long time away to that it's so too early to be thinking about that. But realistically, it's actually not that far away at all. I was just thinking about it, looking at. Yeah, and I'm like going, oh, we're in the middle of November, and like the next game, we play QPR on the 23rd, and that's only a week to it's only 5 weeks from our next game to January transfer window opening. So it is pretty. It's right on top of us, really. So I think you're probably right that Palmer is almost definitely going to be on his way out with his mysterious knee injury situation. But I'm sure there'll be some players, because you look at what's going on. I guess the interesting one could be Gelhardt, because I think if is he in the last 12 months of his deal?
I think it's one of those ones where yes, he is, but I think they've got the option to extend. And yeah. So that's. But
all that weird weird last 6 months of contracts, they can be approached by the clubs, so could be an interesting sort of period. But yeah, look, I think we obviously, like, the main point is we've done a sensational job so far to get ourselves in such a strong position at this point of the season.
Yeah.
But obviously the job's not done. I think defensively we still seem to be conceding too many goals. And if we look at the Portsmouth game specifically, I think the first goal is whatever. I think it's a big deflection off Joseph. Argue Joseph probably needs to do better with his initial attempt at clearing it. He sort of tries to get some sort of control, but then only sort of like punches it out pretty laterally instead of just getting under it and getting it high and letting everyone reset. But the actual goal is just it was a shot that came in and took a wicked deflection that Panda had no chance of doing anything about. So probably the bigger concern is the second goal. I mean, like,
yeah,
or the way that we turned the ball over in the lead up to that, where Hadjiematovic just too long on the ball, too slow to release the pass, and turns it over pretty cheaply.
Doesn't do much to press either.
Two defenders. Gets turned over, comes in. Obviously, it's a great ball from the Portsmouth fella and like a tidy finish at the back post. But it was way too easy to turn that over. And those sorts of moments are making it hard. It just makes it harder for us in the long run. And you see occasionally, a game like Derby, then occasionally it's just going to be too hard to overcome. And if we can just tighten that up that little bit, then I think we're going to become an even more dangerous proposition for the second half of the season, because I think, we're like, in terms of goals scored, we're up there as amongst the best in the league. But then in terms of goals against, we're also down there. We're sort of pulling away a little bit, but down there with kind of in the worst group of defensively. So,
I was going to say, yeah, like I feel like
a little bit of balance.
Yeah, over the last 10 games, I think we're starting to be more mid-table in terms of goals conceded. So I do think we're starting to tighten it up a bit. And I do sort of look at, like, of the 4 goals conceded against Derby and Portsmouth, you look at, I guess, Derby's first goal's arguably a foul on Ajayi from Morris, but it is what it is. Like, it's a goal, it's fine. The second, complete just fluky stuff up from Panda, which you would hope is not a regular occurrence. Again, it's not one that you'd expect to see most weeks. And then the first against Portsmouth's a wicked deflection as well. So it does feel, and you can look at it from the other side. You look at the Norwich game and you go, yeah, we got away with some really, like, obvious clear goal scoring opportunities that Norwich just stuffed up. So it has sort of worked in our favour and against. On the balance of it, we are what we are. But it does feel like over the last month or so, we have really started to tighten up a lot more than we were over that first little period. Which I think is a positive. I know we'll talk specifically on the Portsmouth game. Just as a final sort of like broader point, like I sort of look at how we're traveling, even with the injuries, and think it's such a great achievement. And I don't know. There's the negative part of me that just goes, there's got to be something that's going to go wrong, or it's just too good to be true. But you got to enjoy the ride in football, I suppose. So yeah, look. The 2 goals conceded against Portsmouth are frustrating, but I think, to sort of run counter to the point I just made, the fact that we conceded first against Portsmouth and you go, like, this is such a typical City opportunity to stuff things up, the fact that we came back and won it is a real strength of this side, I think. And even when we went 1-0 down, I was sat there going, that's fine, like, we'll score a goal, like, we're in this. Like, I wasn't sort of writing the game off at that point as maybe we would have in previous seasons. And, sure enough, like, Destin scoring the first, I just forgot the order of the goals. Destin scoring the first, Joseph at the equaliser, and then Joffy with an amazing winner in the second half. Like, all 3 really great goals in their own ways, very different sort of goals scored. And I think that's the other exciting thing, is that we're just scoring goals in different ways.
Yeah, I think when you're right, you look at the 3 goals. I think the first goal, just some sensational build-up passing, and a really good finish as well, sort of at the near post to sort of get a sort of a low bouncing ball and bend that sort of in and around the keeper at the near post was was really well done. And then like to score off set pieces is another thing that we probably haven't really capitalized on much over the last couple of years. So it's good to start seeing that sort of turn around, and some good strength and a good wrestle, and from Joseph, and a good header as well to get that down and across. And then, as you say, the last one, very Hughes's great ball out from the back, and a sensational run and touch and finish from Joffy. You do gotta love the variety in those goals, and I think that's kind of what's making it difficult. I think for the teams that play against us is that it's not we're not just playing a very strict way, where it's felt like over even the last couple of years, even when we were successful under Rosina, it kind of felt like, well, this is how we're going to score goals. Whereas I think we've scored so many different ones. Like early on, it seemed like it was going to be the Giles McBurney partnership that was going to get us all the goals, and that was having success. But then, as you sort of touched on, we do something different. Someone else, we start scoring goals from the other side. Other players are not involved. Like, and we're scoring on the counter, or we're scoring through build up. And it just seems like we just have so many different outlets throughout the squad that it also makes it really hard to, you can't just shut down McBurney and then shut down Hull City at the moment, which is or whoever it is, like Destin or whoever. Like, I think we have so many strings to our bow at the moment, and we've built the squad really nicely. You're right. It's hard not to get too carried away so early in the season. Like, we're only a third of the way through, and you're just going like, well, who's going to stop us? Almost like, But
yeah, no, exactly. And that was exactly what I was thinking as well, just in terms of it must be so hard for opposition to prepare for us, because I think my perspective for the first couple of months was, we're doing well, but I guess teams don't really know us. And therefore, as we start to do better, teams will do the research and prepare better for us. But the more I thought about it, it was, how do you sort of set up against us? Because you sort of think if teams sit off us, sit back so that we can't play our quick passes through them, then you get the sort of opportunity that happens with Hughes playing the ball over the top for Joffy, where, he sort of gets that time and space in the defense to play that long ball. Whereas if teams start to try and press us down, that's when you get Hughes passing it to, I can't remember who it was now, at the start of that first goal chain, because then it's Hughes who then takes off and is up the field, receiving the ball back, playing it, some great triangles to release Coyle. You've got, Hughes, Hughes spoiling my votes already, but Hughes is my man of the match. And you think in a game that we've won 3-2, conceding 2 goals, 3 different goal scorers, arguably Hughes should be doing better to stop their second goal. Still coming away man of the match just shows just how terrific the rest of his performance was, because some of his passes to split the defenders, to let Giles in for some great crossing opportunities as well. You just think it's so hard for the opposition to set up against us, because it's just, we have 30% of possession, we're still scoring goals. We have 60% of possession, we're scoring goals. Like, there's not really a way to constrict us at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, like, just even looking at kind of across the park, but our options in those different positions, particularly like our wingers, we have like quite a broad variety of like the kind of players. Like, it's, if you look at Miller and Balumi, they're very pacey, they're very direct. But then you look at someone like Ndala, he wants to be pretty different. He's a bit more of a, like, he seems to want to get the ball and sort of add his feet a little bit more and show a bit of flair, and sort of, I think the goalie the goal that didn't end up being, or like they almost scored at the end of that game off the short free kick or whatever, where he sat inside the wall, sort of demonstrates the kind of stuff he wants to do, which is not the same as Miller and Bloomy want to sit on the edge of the shoulders sometimes, and they want to be able to get in behind, and they want to do all that. And he, and you go, well, you got someone like him, someone like Akintola, when he's involved, they're not really the same kinds of players. So I think just even having that variety in our positions, even looking at just like Joseph, Desta, and McBurney as 3 sort of number 9 options, all have a kind of a different combination of attributes to work with the team. So that variety in the characteristics of our depth players as well, I think, is a really crucial part of that, because as much as you might prepare for us, like coming in, they get an hour basically, or whatever, once the lineup comes out, then they kind of know what they're looking to expect. So I think, I mean, it's just one of the things. Credit to Jakirovic. I think he's done a sensational job, in his first managerial role in England. Just seems to know what he wants, knows how to communicate that to his players, and knows how to motivate them and get them going. Because I think, as you sort of touched on, the games that we've seen us come from behind, games where we've had a poor first half and a really strong second half, like he knows how to get these guys moving. So hopefully we just continue to do that.
Well, I was going to say it definitely does make Jakirovic the most valuable cog of the whole machine, because you think we can plug and play with almost any of the players. You go, McBurney gets injured, fine, Destin or Joseph comes in. Miller gets injured again, okay, fine, Joseph to the wing. Like we seem to be able to cover for just about any injuries. I mean, if Hughes went down, I think I'd be a bit concerned, but touch wood, that doesn't happen. But Jakirovic is almost like now becoming the most valuable element of the setup. And as much as, talking about not wanting to get too carried away, but you go, if this sort of continues on and whether he starts to attract attention from other clubs, I would like to think that when you're in this sort of period of everything's going well, everything's good, this is the time to actually start to future-proof a little bit. And you go, okay, great. This is the setup that we want. This is the way that we can function correctly. What does this look like? And therefore, are there other options? Like you start to do what the Brighton or the Brentford or whoever do, where they start to future-proof and future plan to say, okay, if Jakirovic left, who do we bring in? Or if these players leave, who do we bring in? And start to do all of that, because the perfect time to be doing that is actually when everything's good. When everything's bad, you're kind of scrambling, you're trying to fight fires, you're trying to just get by day by day. When everything's good, you go, great, this is what good looks like. Let's make sure. And maybe the first step is just getting a new deal in front of Jakirovic with a big buyout clause, for example. But secondly, you'd go, okay, who would be another coach that we could bring in like him if we would need to?
Yeah, definitely. I think you absolutely you sort of hit the nail on the head there. That while like we've come in, we've seen success, and now we know what that can look like. So we need to ensure that we can replicate this in years to come, with or without him. I think sort of as you say, but we're probably about time due to actually talk about the Portsmouth game in a little bit more detail, I reckon.
Yeah. We've sort of been dancing around it, talking about the goals, but yeah, I guess. So we've talked about the Portsmouth goals. We've talked a little bit about our goals, but I guess more broadly on the match itself. So obviously, big crowd, like over 23,000, biggest crowd of the season, which was great to see. But did fall 1-0 behind. How will you feel? Like it was a bit of a chaotic first half because it ended up 2-2, didn't it, at halftime? So it's very topsy-turvy in the end in that first half. But I guess, overall thoughts on the game and how it sort of played out.
Yeah, look, it was chaotic is probably the right word to describe it. I think I was the same as you when we conceded, and both partly because of just the manner that the goal went in, but also just because of how early in the game it was. I didn't feel particularly worried that we'd gone 1-0 behind. I still felt like we had posed enough threat, because I think it wasn't long before that we'd set Joseph away one-on-one, and he, it was a good it was a good save from the keeper. One-on-one, just did pretty much everything you would expect him to try and do there. He tried to get it low and hard across goal, and but that was a really good chance that we created, and I felt like
Joffrey
throughout
as well.
Throughout the first half, I thought we still were consistently creating some good opportunities, so I wasn't too worried overall. And then with the Destin goal, I thought was just sensational. That had me, even though I expected us to score at some point, it had me out of my chair. I just it was great work from everyone, a great ball in from Coyle, and as I sort of said before, a tidy finish from Destin on his first start as well. I think I thought it was by far and away the best performance from him. I thought he did a great job of getting on the end of balls and flicking balls on and bringing balls down and trying to sort of control or dictate
Yeah.
play from up front. So I thought he had a really, really good game. Particularly the first half, I think he sort of started to flag or fail, run out of steam a little bit in the second. But I thought a really solid full debut, and I guess probably more a marker of what he can offer us than maybe some of his sort of 15-minute cameos off the bench. But he was good. I thought Joseph again, like, just ran all day, and I feel like he's now getting to a point where he's involved in 2 or 3 or 4 good chances each game, and sort of now starting to get be able to nab one, put one of those away. So I feel like a month ago or something I said, like, it feels like he's turning a corner and starting to turn that, like, work rate into some sort of end product. So I think it's just another step on that road for him. I think in the mids, probably Hadjiamatovic was probably unfortunately, like, I thought generally was okay, but that moment kind of typified probably his biggest flaw in general, is that when he releases the ball, great range of passing, but has a tendency to just hold on it, to dally a little too long in the middle of the park. So that's something that needs obviously a little bit of needs rectifying. But I think I think we should get Lundstrom back soon as well, so that'll create another interesting sort of dynamic, depending on obviously what happens with Crooks and his injury that does but doesn't really need surgery. Sort of touch and go. Wait to see how things unfold. I'm a little bit unsure about exactly what is going on there, but I guess he can play with it until he can't, is the prognosis. But I thought, like, generally we played pretty good. And it's weird because in a game where we conceded 2 goals, I go, I thought the back line was really, really solid. I thought they did a really good job for most of the game. And even the second goal, you certainly could argue that that Devlin got away from his marker or whatever, but you just that ball was an absolute peach, and he was in the perfect position, and just it was just kind of perfect for Portsmouth, and something that they obviously, one of their strengths is that sort of a play and that sort of a ball in there. So I kind of just like set that one to the side and went, what, fair play to Portsmouth. But I think, like, Hughes was great, as you said. Just think the backwards header clearance from across the goal box was just surreal to watch.
I was convinced that was an own goal. Like, the perspective of the camera, I was like, oh, he's put that into his own net, and I'm just like, how's he done it? It's just skimmed off the top of his head.
It was insane, insane kind of awareness, and I'm not going to call it control, but I guess like the touch or whatever. Like, just look, I think I feel like at the beginning of this season, and maybe it was just as he was kind of getting to terms with Jukiewicz and the new manager or whatever, but I feel like he was a little bit rusty, a little bit off the pace to start with. But I think he's really coming into his own again, and he's kind of getting to a point now where he's probably even surpassing sort of the level of his performances from last season, where he came in and was really strong. So it was a sensational effort. I think you go, like, he's got some that where you go, well, he saved us a point by not, like, we don't concede from that moment where you're going, they're definitely going to score here, and there's some really strong stuff there. He gets us probably the other point with the long ball to Joffy. So I think in general, it's really hard to have too many complaints about the performance as a whole. I think, like, it's kind of one of those games where pretty much everyone was about a 7 or an 8. I think just like, or at least like, everyone was really, really strong. There wasn't really a weak point. at all. Even the subs when they came on, like I think JB had won some nice free kicks to slow things down. And Darla had that sort of half chance at the near post of the free kick. Just I don't know, it was just good. It's pretty much it's weird. It's a weird to like look and go. We won 3-2 and just go like it was actually just a really good performance and just a really good game.
Yeah, and it is funny because obviously Portsmouth had lost, what was it, 3 of their last 4 games or something, and hadn't scored any goals. So you're going to go, like, is that like, should we be more dominant in that sort of game? But as much as we sort of potentially critique games like same as the Norwich game, like, were we a bit, but we keep picking up the wins, and it's gonna be a really fascinating stretch of I think 9 or 11 games over the next run where we play Borough twice, we play Millwall, we play Stoke, we play Ipswich. So we do have quite a tough run coming up. I think that will maybe add a bit of perspective to where we actually sit in terms of our form, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And I thought it was a terrific performance again. And, it's more confidence for the players. As you were saying, Joseph, week on week, just getting more and more of a key contributor to the team. And you look at his run and chase on the keeper in the 97th minute to win the ball, sort of exemplifying his game. And you go, he's played the 98 minutes or whatever of the game and still has it in his tank to do that, to make that run down. And that's the sort of action that will, endear yourself to the supporters, but also to your teammates. And I think great that he got the goal as well, but I think it just shows the work rate that he's got and what he can bring to the team. I think he said in an interview that, obviously he'd love to be getting more goals, more assists, but if he's contributing to us scoring and assisting and it's not on the score sheet for him, he doesn't care, as long as it's something he's doing that helps the team.
Yeah.
And it's a great attitude to have.
Yeah, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it reminded me of I watched someone talking about the Arsenal-Burnley game recently, and Burnley, like, they were down 2-0. It was like the 95th minute or something, and Burnley made a break, and they were basically talking about how, like, basically the whole Arsenal team sprinted back to get back in defensive shape and keep the clean sheet when it wasn't going to affect the game really. Like, they still would have won, and it's the same kind of thing. You go like, those efforts when most people go, well, it doesn't really matter. But if you're willing, if you're putting those efforts,
goal kick, gets the ball anyway. But
yeah, like it's those kind of efforts late in games, those sort of moments where you go like, and I think that's kind of a sign of, again, of what Djurkovic has instilled into this group of players. So I just think that there's just so many good signs of within the squad in general. So I'm obviously I'm so ecstatic with what we've done so far and where we find ourselves, and I'm really optimistic for the rest of the season. And I'm just also trying not to get too carried away.
I think for me it'll be come the turn of the year of the new year where I'll maybe start to really believe, because I think for me in my head I'm just like, this next run of games, I'm like, this is probably the litmus test for me in terms of what we can actually achieve. So we'll see how that goes. I'll grab your votes for this game and then we'll round things out talking QPR.
Right. So I went the same as you for 3. I went Hughes for the 3 points. Sort of as I touched on before, I think in a sense really won us the 3 points with some crucial clearances and then the great ball to Joffy. I gave 2 points to Joseph for, I guess sort of a few good chances, the goal, and what we were just talking about, that effort in the dying moments of the game. And I gave a point to Destan for a goal on debut. And I thought, as I sort of touched on before, a solid performance in number 9 and trying to link up the play from up there.
Yeah, I was going to give Joseph a vote initially, but then I sort of had to think about it and say Hughes for the 3. I went Destan for the 2. I thought, full debut, starting debut, really impressive, strong aerial display with his flick-ons, great finish for the goal as well. I thought was really impressive from him. I went Gelhardt for the 1, sort of a bit under the radar. He ended up with a goal and an assist for the game. Got the corner whipped in for the Joseph goal, as well as his finish at the end there. So I thought I can't really go past him for a vote. But Joseph, a really unlucky player to not get a vote in that game from me. But yeah, like you said, it was a game where you'd say most, if not all, players were at least a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So it was a really strong all-round performance.
I had another name written down, which was Gelhart, who I was like, I crossed him off at the last minute. I was like, I'll give my points. So we're like, we were thinking of all the same people.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll round things off talking QPR. So I guess this is, the calm before the storm, so to speak. We've got a couple of tougher games to come after this one. I think it's Ipswich midweek after this game. But it is Saturday night, 3 losses in a row at home for them. So it's a reasonably kind fixture in that sense. Julian Stefan, the manager there, taking over when Cifuentes left to join Leicester in the summer. Recruited reasonably well in the summer. So they got Kone in from Wickham, who, as a prolific striker in League One, did start off reasonably well for QPR, but it's dried up a little bit for him recently. And, sort of split the points last season. We beat them 3-1, obviously in our 3-game winning run under Volta early in the season, and then lost 2-1 at home to them last season. So bit of a mixed bag there. Reasonable squad from their perspective, but you could argue like they're not in a great run of form at the moment. You alluded to it before, but Lundstrom should supposedly be fit for this one. Obviously, Balumi was in the squad for the Portsmouth game, but didn't come off the bench. So you think maybe he'll get some minutes in this one as well. So, all in all, it seems as if we should be sort of getting players back from injury, starting to get the squad a bit stronger than it's already been. So it's a reasonably strong position for us heading into this one.
Yeah, I think we've done a great job to in the lead into this international break to have got so many points and sort of gone into that break with so much confidence. I think, like basically, he said to most of the squad, have a rest. There's a few that went away on duty, and there's a few that haven't been getting many minutes who have played in the under-21s. I think Balumi wasn't one of them. He basically, saw that he basically was like, he should be pretty much good to go, or like start being involved after the break. So I'm pretty confident. This feels like a game that we should be winning. We've got 3 wins and a draw in our last 5. They've got 1 win in their last 5. So I think I can't really see. I can't see any result apart from a win. To be honest, I just think, as you kind of touched on, there's a few games that are coming up that are going to be tough, and I mean maybe this is going to be famous last words or whatever, but it just feels like this isn't one of the ones that I'm concerned about.
This to me is looking at the run of games that we had, and I remember we were sitting here saying that we thought we'd win all 3 of Norwich, Derby, and Portsmouth. Obviously lost the Derby game, but that sort of level of confidence that especially the Portsmouth game heading into the break, I thought this will be a great bounce back game after the Derby defeat. Like, we'll definitely win that one. It's that same sort of feeling with the QPR game, as you said, famous last words. It always seems that way, that as soon as we get too confident, things go a bit haywire. But I think this to me is, as much as the Portsmouth game was really good to get a win heading into the break, I think if we can get the 3 points here, it sort of takes a little bit of the pressure off that next run of games where you sort of go, if we drop points in QPR and then we have, I don't know, I think it's Ipswich,
Ipswich, Stoke, Borough.
Yeah, so that's a tough 3-game run. So you sort of think if we drop points against QPR, you're suddenly up against it to really get some points out of those games if you want to sort of stay in and around that top 6 position. So I think 3 points in this is a must, and full confidence in Jakirovic. Like, it seems as if we come out of international breaks quite strong. It seems as if he's got a really good plan in terms of how he's sort of broken up the squad in terms of players going away on international duty versus players coming back from injuries who got some minutes with the under-21s versus players who have played a lot of minutes and just need a bit of a rest. So it seems like we're managing it really well. I don't even know necessarily if we change the starting 11. I can't imagine Lundstrom comes in from the start, and I don't think Balumi would. So I'd almost say just stick with what we've... And, Ajayi coming back from internationals, probably don't risk him from the start. I'd almost go just unchanged from the Portsmouth game.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why you would change, unless the only thing I could think of is if he decided to do the five in the back again,
Yep.
from the start, which we saw a few weeks ago. In which case, like Ajayi would come in, but that would be about it. I think you're right. I don't really see any reason to change. We've basically got a winning formula. And we can strengthen that in the coming weeks, but I don't think there's any reason to rush those players back from their injuries as well.
For sure.
I mean, obviously, like if McBurney was just declared fit, I'd say he probably could just slot back in. But that would probably be the only one that if they found him fit over the break and he was fit to play, that he might just slot back in. But I'd be happy even just to play a little bit more cautiously with him to preserve him long term.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, just to wrap things up then, I'll get a score prediction from you and then we'll sign off.
Let's pretend that we're going to fix all of our defensive worries and we'll go with a nice, clean 2-0 victory.
I'm not as optimistic on the defense. I'll say 2-1, but pretty much on the same page there. So look, we'll leave things there. So thanks for joining me for this one, Dan.
No worries.
And thanks everyone for listening in. I think I saw that we actually had some people watching along live. I thought at 4 a.m. or something in the UK that was unlikely, but we did seem to have a few people pop in, which was great to see. So thanks everyone for listening in. And until next time, come on.